Order of magnitude jump in height, altitude, and speed and distance.
And they were trying to convince us how neat it would be to get in a capsule on top of a rocket. And I said, no way. Send that idiot that goes out of the cannon in the circus and let him land in a net and forget us. They said, no, don't worry. We're going to put some monkeys and chimpanzees in first. Now I know I want out of here. So I really had a very negative opinion of it.
Before the first flight, we will have developed our Mercury spaceship to the point where it will be as reliable as man can devise. Today we are introducing to you and to the world these 7 men who have been selected to begin training for orbital space flight.
I feel that this is the future of not only this country but the world. We've gone about as far as we can on this globe, and we have to start looking around a bit. And it's just the natural expansion of flight.
Project Mercury is just one part of the endeavor toward space travel.
I got on this project because it'd probably be the nearest to heaven I'd ever get, and I wanted to make the most of it.
These, ladies and gentlemen, are the nation's Mercury astronauts.
Echo was 100 feet in diameter, and it was one of the biggest challenges that we had in Lightning.
This is President Eisenhower speaking. It is a great personal satisfaction to participate in this first experiment in communications involving the use of the satellite balloon known as Echo.
The real thing that came out of it was that everybody in the world saw it. They knew that the United States was in the space business.
Come fly with me, let's fly away.
Convincing others that humans could do a job in space, that's what we were up to in Project Mercury. 98% of the medical community in the United States did not think man could survive in that environment, much less do a job. And that was very important to the future of manned spaceflight because it allowed us to take advantage of the human being's thinking capacity, his intelligence, and it simplified the design of the spacecraft, frankly.
And none of us had ever seen a missile launch. And so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the booster launches, and the big flame, and we're standing there watching it go up like this. And here are these 7 budding astronauts watching this. It goes up and hits 27,000 feet and blew. And it just looked like an atomic bomb went off over our head up there. And I remember us looking at each other and saying, we got to talk to some engineers tomorrow morning. That was the initial launch that any of us had ever seen down at the Cape.
The Pilots Aircraft Division is actually the division that got us into space, because I work for Max Roget, and Max Roget, of course, is the one who did the Mercury capsule, invented that completely.
I'll tell you, it became immediately apparent to me that the only practical approach was the one I had proposed, simply because it provided the lightest way to do it. Our best launch vehicle was the Atlas. The Mercury was the only one that had a chance to be made light enough to be able to make orbit on the Atlas. We didn't call it Mercury that day. We still call it the capsule. The concept we came up with, well, it was it was a primate for Mercury. It was it wasn't quite there.
And then we started launching monkeys and then chimpanzees, and then they launched Yuri Gagarin. We were totally shook by that.
Yuri Gagarin and the Soviets got there first. And that was a terrible disappointment for the nation and for us, of course.
Yuri Gagarin was launched into Earth orbit in 1961. The United States still wasn't there. But the 60s were a decade of change, and NASA would forever change the course of human exploration.
We were getting telegrams like mad from all over the country, from the Association for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, ASPCA. Please stop launching these chimpanzees. So we launched Alan Shepard.
I always think that Alan Shepard's flight was a fantastic moment in the history of NASA and the history of manned spaceflight. When I think back on that and I watch him come out of that van on the Redstone pad and look up at that rocket in that silver suit he had on, and all those lights flashing and people looking at him and watching and wondering himself what the hell he was doing there, getting up on top of this rocket.
I think the biggest surprise I had in the whole series of events in the space program was after Shepard's flight. Within weeks, President Kennedy said,
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
I thought that is the most audacious thing I have ever heard in my entire life. Are we serious about this?
Here comes the sun.
Remember now when he said that, we had yet to orbit the first man in this country. John Glenn was 10 months away from flying.
The exploration of space will go ahead, whether we join in it or not. And it is one of the great adventures of all time.
Most of us thought he was really stretching the point, and frankly, I thought he was out of his mind.
We didn't really even have computers at the start of this. We were all still using our slide rules.
We set sail on this new sea because there is new knowledge to be gained and new rights to be won.
He was asking us to do what most people at the time thought couldn't be done. But he was doing it in an environment in which the Soviet Union literally owned space. And he laid the gauntlet down. American people picked the gauntlet up and got to a point where they didn't know it couldn't be done.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
That was all heady stuff, and we were all, you know, go man, go.
So to go to orbital speed, you have to go 17,300 miles an hour. That's how fast you have to go to balance gravity. So the first manned flight for orbit was John Glenn.
Godspeed, John Glenn.
Doctors were concerned, for instance, that when you're in zero G for a while, for several hours, you're afraid your eyes might change shape, that you wouldn't be able to even keep your vision on the instrument panel.
Roger, zero G, and I feel fine.
So we were out to prove that those things did not make the difference, but and that's what that first flight was all about.
Oh, that view is tremendous.
I can see for miles and miles and miles.
When John flew, he saw these glowing particles at sunset, and they looked a little like fireflies, so he told the ground it was fireflies. And it was a major mystery, but I could create these fireflies by rapping on the side of the spacecraft. It turned out they were little chips of ice, and they fly past the window like a firefly might. My mission ended up being controversial because I overshot the landing by, I think, 200 miles. So my flight did contribute a lot of new knowledge to the science of spaceflight, and it took the form of redesign. But all flights do that. You know, we